Hello and welcome to hobby vlog number 60. It is now late on Boxing Day after an absolutely wonderful Christmas period, and I'm just finishing off editing the vlog in time to publish it tomorrow. And it's been a week where I've not done as much hobbying as I normally would do, but that's because it's been Christmas, and Christmas is a time for family and another time for locking yourself away in your office and in your hobby rooms. So I hope that none of you have done too much hobbying as well. We all need a break every now and then, and it really has been joyous and wonderful. I have got stuff done, most of it panic building for the Encounter Terrain challenge, which I'm very late on because of the lack of deliveries, the fact that Europe has basically collapsed, and the trucks are taking weeks to get across Europe, which is very frustrating. But other than that, I have made some other progress. The model railway that I'm doing for Rosie, the plans for that are coming along nicely, and that will start to be appearing in the vlog much more over the coming weeks. And also I have made a little bit of progress on finishing off my oak and iron stuff. So that wasn't really filmed, I've just done a little bit of a summary of it. But yeah, it's been a good week, it's been a quiet week, but it's been an excellent week. And I hope it has been an excellent week for you as well. Anyway, that's enough rambling. Let's get back, show you some clips, and I'll see you again at the end of the video, and I hope they do enjoy it. Just thought I'd bring you along for this little bit. I've used the tiles that you get from Sarissa, the pre-cut tiles, which I really like because they're really easy to use and they save me time, and I'm a bit lazy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this red paint to just go over the top and paint it. Now I will bring you back when I'm done and ready to do the snow, because I've realised that this and my fences are probably going to be the only things that will be on this video showing actually how I did the snow, because I did most of it on the live stream. So I'll get this ready and get the fences ready with some more flocking and what have you, and then I'll bring you back next time when I'm doing the snow, because that will be basically the end, which I'm really pleased about. I've obviously not done the Stuka Zufus, but that's okay. It's very close. But getting these done, I've been really enjoying this build. By the time you see this in the vlog, it will already have been published, because I'm publishing this on Christmas Day as a Christmas gift to you all. Anyway, I'll get this painted, we'll be ready, and then we'll come back for the final steps. The black paint has dried, well enough anyway. I'll do another coat probably. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make use of this red paint, and I'm going to paint in where the running track area is, because I don't know where you come from, but where I come from, running tracks a lot of the time are red, so that they stand out from the surrounding grass. So we'll just do that very quickly, as you can see, and the texture will be fine, that'll be enough. I may end up, as I say, coming back in and touching up the black paint a little bit more, but for now it's done its job, it's protecting it. I can feel that it's protecting the foam from being damaged as I'm working, so yeah, I'll probably do that at the last step. There we are, simple as that. So that will now dry very quickly as well, because this is nice house paint and it's only a very thin coat. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the bleachers, and I've got a special idea about that, which involves coffee stirrers and patience. So let's see how well that works. I'll bring you back in a second. I've realised that I was actually wrong. The next thing I need to do is work on the parade ground. Now I don't yet have the miniatures, but that's fine, because I can still work on the layout, because I know what I'm going to do. So what I've got here is I've just got some sandpaper. I think it's 200 grit sandpaper, I'm not entirely sure. And I'm going to glue this down into this area here using PVA and then clamp it in place. So we'll just put a dollop of PVA on it, spread it around, use my fingers, which I shouldn't do, because it gets PVA all over my fingers. And then we'll pop that in place. So you can see that I've cut that out to the shape of the poppy, and that's going to be fine. Now, because it's bending, because it's come from a roll, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some clamps on to hold it in place. So I have several clamps, and we can clamp it down like so, and then when it's dry it should be fine. That now will, when it's dried, will now hold itself in place. So the next thing that I'm going to be doing is on this one and on War, which is here, and also on the school day, you can see I've still got some black to paint. I'm going to make a mix of brown grout with the grout mix, which you can see a link to in the description below. It's in the description of every one of my videos how I make that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in this area with the grout and here, and then I'm going to come on to doing the bleachers, because I need to have the grout done before I do this, because I want to be building on top of it for the bleachers, so for the stands. So yeah, so I'll get that done, I'll get a mix done, and I'll bring you along to show you how I apply it to this one, and then probably I'll have to leave that to go off before I can do the next steps. So yeah, good progress. I've mixed up some of my grout, sand, PVA and water, and now what we're going to do, just using an old brush, is we're just going to brush it on the top here around the edge of the running track, and this will give us a little bit of texture that we can put some of our grass effects on. And you can see that really nice texture coming out in places. This is because I put grit in it with the grout, so I don't just do a pure grout mix. But like I say, there's a link in the description below of pretty much every one of my videos since I made that one, showing how I do this. Someone called it my version of Sterling mud, which I'd not realised because I don't use those materials at all, so I haven't pretended or attempted to make a version of Sterling mud, but apparently that's what it is. So yeah, we'll paint this on here, and I'll also do it on the other sections that I want to do. The only section that I'm not going to be working on at the moment is the one with for the burial, which I want to wait for my other miniatures to arrive. Hopefully they will soon. But yeah, at the end of the day, this is the one I want to make. So yeah, I'll get this done and I will bring you back for the next step, which probably now will be this evening or tomorrow when I come to work and finish this, because it's not going to take long now from here. Quite simple builds, but hopefully telling a lovely story of glory and honour. So I've applied that all over everywhere I want it to go on the actual bases, and now I think what I'm going to do is work on the explosion. So I've just been twisting some wire to have a bit of a play around, and I'm happy with what I've got, so I'm going to carry on. And I thought I'd show you. So what I've done is I've put 3 holes into this tea light, and I'm going to take this wire which I've got down here, twist it so that I have the shape that I'm looking for, because I'm looking for a specific shape, as you know, a poppy shape, and that's what this top bit is. And then I will make the explosion out of fibre, so I have some here and I have more if I need it. There's a video I've got about making a blown up tank, which I'll try to remember to link in this, just up on the top of the screen now, so you can see how I do this. But basically I will be gluing that to the framework and then using spray paints, aerosols, to paint it black and grey and red on top, because it's going to be part of the poppy. So once I've done that twisting, I will then glue it into this, hot glue it all onto the tea light. However, what I'm going to be doing first is putting my mud mixture all the way around the tea light, so that there isn't going to be any of the plastic showing, which I really don't want there to be plastic showing, and it will just make it look like it actually is just part of the base. So those are the 2 things I'm going to do. I'll bring you back when it's done and show you what the next step is. We're flying along towards completion here. Just need to make sure that I don't do what I just did and fill the hole in. That would be silly. But yeah, let's just get this texture all over it and then leave it to dry, and then I will go and finish doing the explosion as well. Get that done, and then we're pretty much there on that, apart from waiting for the miniatures. Long-term viewers of this channel will know that for Rosie's first birthday I made her a hobbit hole, which she absolutely loves. And I've been thinking since, and I wasn't actually going to do something necessarily for her second birthday, but this is going to work so nicely that I think I am going to do it, about what to do. And I am going to make a start and make a little layout for her based on one of the books that she really loves reading. The Poppy and Sam series, Farmyard Tales maybe. And in that book there is a couple of kids who live on a farm with their mum and Ted and their dad every now and then. And running near the farm is an old steam train that they have great joy going on, and Rosie has great joy reading about. They've got a naughty sheep, and they've got some cows, and they've got some pigs, and it's a really nice little story, and I think I can make a really nice layout based on that story. So I have ordered the engine, the locomotive, which is probably what the artist based the story pictures on, so that's coming. And the units which I purchased for the main layout outside room 13, I've just put them together today, and I've offered them up into the area because I think the doors you see here is where the games room is. Back here is where the main layout's going to be, and so this is where Rosie's little layout's going to be, and you can see that they're a really nice height, and they're going to be really good to have the layout on top of. So I'm going to order a few more because I don't have enough. I did find that I did order ones with a door on the front, and unfortunately the shop sent me the wrong ones, so I'm waiting for maybe some shop credit there or whatever. But I'm going to place an order now for a bunch more because they're just perfect. They're really good solid units, and I'm going to order the ones with the doors so that we can have storage in the front. I can maybe put some extra shelves in, and you can have locomotives and other bits and pieces stored out the way for when it's not in use. So that's where it's going to sit. There will be quite a lot of content on this as I get ready, because her birthday is only in 6-7 weeks time now, so I've got to get this, I've got to get my skates on. So yeah, that is going to look absolutely brilliant when it's there. I'm very, very pleased indeed. And so we come to pretty much the last step of this build, which is making the And so we come to pretty much the last step of this video and these builds. So I did this step on other parts of this build during the really fun live stream I did with Travis. However, I have these fences, I have the frozen lake, and I have the roof of the house. Now you can see that around the base we have some snow effects already. This was done during the live stream, and you can see just how effective that is. Also do a little bit of colour. So what we're going to do is we're going to put snow down on these bases. Now what I'm probably going to focus on doing is I'll work on one of my fences while I'm on camera, and I'll also potentially do a little bit of work just on the roof as well, because those are the two things which I think are going to be the most complex. So what I'll do is I will focus the camera down a little bit more specifically in this area, show you how I mix it up. I'm using poor man's snow effects with baking soda, unfortunately, because my purchased stuff has got caught up in the Christmas rush and just hasn't arrived. So this is going to show you how to make this with baking soda and how to apply it, just how quick and easy it is. So I'll put the camera down and let's get this done. Okay, so the materials that you'll need is baking soda, which I keep in this old yeast pot, but it is baking soda, as you can see. You want some white paint. I just use clean white, that's what that says, Trist or Biello, clean white, house paint. Don't buy any special paint for that, the cheapest stuff you can find. And then PVA glue. And those are the three items that you will need. So I do this very much by eye. Quite often I get it wrong. But basically you take some baking soda, put it into a little pot, and put that out of the way so I won't knock it over. I then get some white paint, potentially about the same, roughly the same quantity, roughly the same volume as baking soda, and I put that in, and then that can get moved out of the way. And finally we put some PVA in. Now it might be that I've made this with a little bit too little of the baking soda, and if that's the case then I will add some more baking soda. So once you've done that, you then mix it together, and what you end up with is quite a dry paste is what you're aiming for. So yes, it looks like I've put too much liquid in that, quite a lot too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put more baking soda in. Now I've got quite a lot of snow to make, so I'm not too worried at this stage about over making. There we are, that's starting to look a little bit better. So I apologise, my quantities were out. What you want is about the same volume of baking soda as the combination of white paint and PVA. There we are. That's looking good. That's a pretty good consistency. So once you've got that stirred, I either use the same thing, so like a palette or something which you can which you stir, or an old brush to apply it. It does wash off if you clean it quickly, so you can use any brush and they won't completely ruin them, but an old brush is probably best. And then what I do is I stipple it on. I don't brush it on, I stipple it on, which is why you can use anything. You don't need to use a brush. I sometimes find a brush that just gives me a little bit more control. And that's it. It is literally as simple as that. Now, some people have had problems with this yellowing. I know that Travis himself said that he had problems with it yellowing when using this technique. And I haven't yet. Not to say I won't, obviously, because never say never. But so far I haven't. Now, I did this technique when I was painting up some Iron Hills dwarves and I was basing them. And I used this technique to put snow on their bases. And that was quite a long time ago now, several years. And they haven't yet yellowed. So your mileage may vary, as they say, but mine with this technique has been pretty good. Now, I do have, I think, some Woodland Scenics snow effects coming, as I've said, and I will do a follow-up video when they arrives to have a look at that. But this is all I've got at the moment, so this is all I can use. So yeah, you can see it's a very simple technique to apply. Just try to think about where snow might be. I'm not doing an overloaded snow here. I'm doing it maybe where it's melted a bit, so I'm not going to try and cover the whole thing, but just try and think where it might be in the prototype. Have a look at photographs if you're not sure. And ultimately, just do what you want. Nature is very random. So I'm going to get this done, and I'm going to finish off applying that to the other fences and also to the other parts of this roof. And I'll bring you back to show you what they all look like and to wrap the video up. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you may have even gotten involved and done some building. If you have, don't forget to share it on the Instagram hashtag winterize for Christmas, and we'll have a look and see if anyone's done anything and see if there are any pictures, and maybe I'll do a review of that another time as well. So if you have done it, let me know via that hashtag. Thank you very much. The next thing I want to do on this, now that this is all dry, is doing the seating or the kind of the stand area. And what I'm going to do with that is I've got some coffee stirrers and I'm going to split them down very, very small. So let me just show you how I'm going to do that, because some people struggle with this and I have a technique which works really, really well. So how I do it is, rather than, I've got to chop it, but I just don't use it because this is so easy. I have a normal hobby knife. I place the hobby knife where I want to cut and I just lift. And that gives me a good cut, which is pretty clean. It's not massively clean. You can sand it if you need it to be far cleaner than that. But it's with very little effort, as you can see. So now that I've taken the ends off, what I'll then do is very, very carefully, I will split this down. Now I'm probably at the wrong angle. That's a bit better. And I do that again, just very, very gently, without rushing, without pulling too hard. Just drag the hobby knife down. And there we are, we've got a split. Now I do actually want them to be quite thin, so that's perfect. If you're a little worried that you're not going to be able to do this straight, then you could potentially make a jig to cut against. But because I'm doing this rough and I want it rough, that's going to be perfect. So I'm now going to go and split a few more coffee stirrers, not too many, because I don't actually need that many. If you see, that is actually going to fit nicely across the top there, giving you a hint of what I'm going to do. So probably I need to split another 3 just to finish off. And when I've done those splittings and I'm ready, I'll bring you back and show you what the next step is. So I've made a load of cylinders, as you can see, and now simply what I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue them across the top of each of these ledges. So I'm going to do that with PVA, let that to dry. That will give a good solid good solid seal. Hopefully they'll stay well. So we'll just draw some PVA across like that, do some beads, and then do the thing I always do, which I always say I shouldn't do, which is use my finger to spread it out. Should have a brush, but I don't have one to hand directly in front of me. There we are. And I'm not going to trim these down now. I'm just going to place them in, and I will trim them when it is dry. So let's see whether this is a success. Immediately it is not being a success because these are already bowed. So let's hope I can do this correctly. Right, I'm going to need to work out a way of clamping and securing these, which I'll do, and I'll bring you back and show you what I've done when I've done it, because I'm not totally sure how I'm going to do it just yet. But I think that's going to work. PVA generally grips quite nicely. Just need to make sure that they don't warp up too much, and I think that'll be fine. So I'll get that done, and then I'll bring you back when I have them secured, and I'll show you how I've done it. Well, there we are. Traditional method of just using some heavy things on top. So I'll leave that now for a few hours and come back, and hopefully they will have stuck, and if not, I will use super glue. Now we come to cutting this off the base, and you'll see just how successful it was in terms of preventing it from warping. So I have my knife, and what we'll do is we'll take the clamps off. And you can see that that is absolutely not warped. Now if you'd have tried to do that without the clamp, it would be like a banana, I can tell you. The other benefit of using the black foam is that when I cut this, I could cut it at an angle maybe, but I don't have to because it won't look too terrible because it'll have a black edge, which is a smoother way of doing it. So let me get my knife and I'll cut it out. There we are. You can see just how successful that has been. So I'll finish cutting this out and tidying it up, and we have ourselves a frozen lake. Now obviously I never did get to the other one. The reason why I didn't get to the other method is because I don't actually have any acetate, and I couldn't find any in the shops, so I wasn't able to get the correct materials. But maybe I'll try and get hold of some and do another follow-up video showing the different style of lake. Might be quite nice, I think. But let me get this cut out, and then I'll bring you back to wrap up and show you all the results of everything that I've made. And there we have it, winter terrain. And honestly, I'm so impressed with how it looks. I'm really pleased. It was a really fun challenge to do, really pushed me to a new style of terrain, which I've not really done before, which was part of the whole purpose, was getting out of my comfort zone. And I've got some really cool terrain there which can be used for a variety of things. So most of it, everything but the fences is going to be 20mm, so that'll be for World War II generally. And the fences are obviously 28mm, so they can be really useful for some of my other, SBG, that sort of wargaming that I do. But it just looks great. They've worked out really well. Using the poor man's snow effects has worked really nicely. I think that they've done a really good job. That frozen lake I'm particularly pleased with. I may do a little bit more touching up on that. I may come in with some darker blues and line down some of the cracks a bit and just make it pop a bit more. But even as simple as it was, just with that light blue wash has worked really well with that roller that I got from Green Stuff World. Yeah, and the Pack 40, the little bunker, that's just superb. I think that's possibly my favourite thing. And then top right we've got the little dugout where quite a lot of people actually can probably stand in there and be sheltered and be dug in, so you can have a couple of mortars in there maybe, or some machine guns. It's just a cracking little set of winter scenery terrain. I'm really pleased. So thanks Travis for getting stuck in and being interested and up for doing this. I'm very pleased with what I've produced, and I can tell you what, from what I've seen of what you've done, I know that what Travis has done has been absolutely brilliant as well. So there we are, the project is completed, and I'm really happy, as you can probably hear. We are now entering Operation Panic Build. It is December the 23rd. Yesterday a delivery arrived and not a single item that I was hoping to receive for the Encounter 10 challenge arrived in that shipment, which is just the worst thing, because now I don't really want to do half a job on that. I really like the concept and I will finish it when the miniatures arrive, but I do want to enter this terrain challenge. So I'm going to go to a backup, and that backup is not the one that I've mentioned before, which is doing the oak and iron ship, because the base that I use for the oak and iron ship is more than 200 centimeters, so I can't enter it. What I'm going to do instead is build a stable. Now the reason for this is there was a famous racehorse, which I'd never heard of, called Honour and Glory, and this stable is going to be for Honour and Glory, and that is the kind of reasoning behind this. It's going to be a playable piece, so I will make it so that it's playable, and it's going to be a speed build because I literally have just a few days. So let's see how I can do. What you can see here is I've used my technique for making sure that bases don't warp with the particle board clamped down. This is more than 10 by 20 by 20. I will get some masking tape and mask out a square, which will be where my build is within, and then I will start to make the actual stable. So I'll bring you along for that, show you what I do, and sorry for how bitty and itty this video has been. It is one of those things when you're just held up so much by deliveries that you keep changing your mind, but I think that this one should be achievable in the next couple of days. There we are, that's marked out now, and we have our space. So I'm going to be making this using cardboard, and I've got this box that arrived this week, which I'm going to make use of, so a little bit of recycling going on. So we will now just quickly sketch out roughly where we want things to be. Obviously it's not going to be completely and utterly accurate, but my plan is to have the actual stable to take up about 2/3 of the space. So it will be a building around there. We will have stalls inside the stables like this. Looks like we're going to have about 4 stalls, and then we will have an area in front, which is where you walk along between the stalls and the front of the stable, and we will have a doorway roughly there. And then what we'll do is we will have a fence around the outside, so it's enclosed, and it'll be just that simple. So what I'm going to do now is measure out, cut and glue some cardboard and stick it down in place in these areas. Then I'm going to clad it with coffee stirrers, paint it, and it'll be done. And then it'll be a case of doing the ground cover. It's going to be a very, very quick build. The roof, I'm going to go with a flat roof, so I'm going to have it taller at the front and at the back, so that water flows off the back and doesn't come down into the little yard. So any rain, it means that it'll be kept nice and a little bit drier here. All the runoff won't come down, so it'll be a pitched roof, so going back towards the back of the build. So I will get a little bit of measuring and making done and bring you along for the next step when I get to it. I have just gone a bit nuts with cardboard and a knife, and what I've got is the outlines of my stables. So that is roughly the shape it's going to be, and here is the front of the building, and I'm going to now glue this in place. Well, not now, but shortly glue this in place to make the actual framework. So the first thing, the one thing that's left that I need to do is actually cut the door in this front wall. But this is how it's going to be constructed. I'm going to glue and clamp that and make sure that's nice and 90 degrees, and then that will be able to sit onto the base nice and easily, and I'll be able to put the glue all of the coffee stirrers over it very, very quickly. So yeah, I'm now going to mark up and cut out the door. One thing to point out is I have left a little bit of an air gap at the top, which is pretty prototypical. You don't really want this to be completely enclosed, so that there's always a breathing air and circulation coming in. So yeah, and I will do it so that the roof is removable as well, because I want this to be playable. So I'll quickly get in there, cut the correct location for the door, glue that on, clamp it in place, and I'll bring you back to show what it looks like when that's done. The next step before we carry on is to use a wire brush like this to actually score the surface of this foam. The reason for this is that this foam is very smooth and it doesn't really take very well with glue or anything like that being stuck to it. So I'll get that done. It's not a very nice sound, so I won't film or put some music on, and we'll get that scored out. There we are. Doesn't take long, doesn't sound very nice. So we will get rid of all that dust. I'll get a brush, dustpan and brush actually, and brush it up. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to glue the basics of the stable in place. As you can see, that is now looking quite nice. Once that's glued in place, I'll be able to do the rest of the scenicking and put the divides in, and this is flying towards completion. I do just want to say one more thing actually about this. What I'm going to do is I've decided against lining it all with coffee stirrers for two reasons. One, I think it'll take ages, and two, I just don't think it will look very good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do wooden beams around the outside, and then put spackle in so it looks like it's actually plastered. So it's a bit of a nicer looking stable than I was originally planned. But that's cool because our glory and honour was a winning horse. So yeah, of course he'll have a nice stable. So what I now need to do is glue the stable in place. And you can see that I have actually got a bend in that because I used one single piece of cardboard, and that's where one of the creases was. So it's a little bit wonky and it's not actually holding its shape very well. However, I have an idea of how to get around this, and it's going to be using weight. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run my bead of PVA all the way along the bottom of these so that there is enough of adhesion that it will actually stay. I do hasten to add, this isn't the only thing that's going to hold it in place. I will be coming in and building up around the edges with some Luke's modelling compound, which will then add much more rigidity. I love that word, rigidity. So once we've got our PVA in, and you can see I've been quite generous because this is now going to be left to dry for a while. It moves a bit, as you can see, which isn't what we want. We don't want that to be bent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come along with some weight, and I'm going to use the weight to hold it in place. As simple as that. And I hope this is going to work. If it doesn't work, then I don't know what I'm going to do. Because I tried with pins before and that didn't work. Might be able to come in here and make that straight, and come in here and make that straight. There we are. I think that's actually going to be a better idea. Just holding it square between these, and maybe with one bit of weight on the top to hold it down. So there we are. I will let that dry. Fingers crossed that will hold enough, and then we can come in with the modelling compound and we can fill in around the edge. So yeah, we're moving fast now. The building is now glued in place, and is secure enough for me to come along with my Luke's APS modelling compound, Geek Gaming, and do the terrain outside. Now I'm only going to be doing this on the outside. I'm not going to be doing this inside the stable, I don't think, because I'll be putting down a different texture inside, which you'll see in a bit. I'm going to probably use old tea leaves and things like that to make a slightly different texture. But this is going to both cover over the flatness, give it a little bit more interest and layering, and also act as a support around the base of these walls. So I'll get this done. I won't bother running the camera the whole time because this is something which anyone who's watched my channel more than once has seen, and yeah, it gets very repetitive as well anyway, even on the video. But you basically just apply it, smooth it out, and then let it dry, and it goes dry to touch very quickly, like 15 minutes. But if you leave it overnight, then it normally is totally gone off by then. I believe you can paint it within about half an hour or so. It's really cool stuff. I'd highly recommend it. I use it a lot. So I'll put this all the way over around the outside, down the sides and the back, and let that go off overnight, and I'll bring you in for when I do this next bit, whether it's now or tomorrow, whichever it is. I don't know how much time I've got, but yeah, I'm flying on with this. I've only got another day or so to go, which I've got available to work on it, so I really need to crack on. I've done all of the Luke's modelling compound, as you can see, and that will now go off nicely. And I've realised I really am in quite a lot of a rush, which I don't really like being in a rush, but I am. So what I need to do is carry on with the inside. So what this will involve is some of my terrain glue. There is a link in the description below of how I make this. It is simply PVA mixed with water. and a little dash of washing up liquid just to keep it as a flow agent and prevent it from going off. And what we're going to do is paint that on, not too thick, because yeah, it just will, if you have it like running and way too thick, then the tea leaves will just sit on top. And that's what I did before when I tried to do this, and I did a bad job of it. Didn't really work very well. But this is possibly a couple of applications you need to do. So we will now, this is very old dried tea leaves, used tea leaves. I saved them. I drink a lot of tea. And what I'll be doing is I will be scattering those inside the stable area. And I may do, as I've said, a couple of applications. So we will cover the whole area, let that dry, maybe come in with some more PVA glue and another layer on top, let that dry, and that then will look really nicely like the inside of a stable should. So I'll get that done, and then I think that will have to be my the way I have to stop today, or at least until later on. Go and do something else now, get ready for Christmas. But at least I'm making a progress, at least I'm doing something. I'm not failing to submit. I'm really gutted that those miniatures didn't arrive in time for me to finish the first idea, but that's cool, that's life. Right, I'll let that dry. I may do another application of PVA over the top, but I'll bring you along if I do decide to add a seal on it and show you how I do it. I've left that to dry overnight. What I'm now going to do is another layer. So I've scattered some more tea leaves in, and what I'm doing now is I'm coming along with some 99% alcohol and just using a dropper. I'm soaking all the area inside. And what I will then do is clean the dropper, get some of my terrain paint and dropper that on. And that will then need to be put by a fire because I want it to dry quickly, because that normally would take several days to dry because it's such a lot of moisture. But I can put it by the fire downstairs, which we're about to light, and it will dry pretty quickly when it's got a load of heat. And then that should then become a very, very solid layer of the tea leaves, which will look perfect for the inside of a stables. I'm not stuck waiting for this to dry. The next thing to do is going to be to make the stable dividers, and the reason why I've not glued them in yet is because I want them to actually sit on legs and have little, so they're going to be assembled outside and then glued in place afterwards. So you can see you're putting a lot of paint in, a lot of glue in, always get that wrong. If you're worried about that being too much, you can come in with a tissue, let me just show you, and you can sop up some of the excess if you feel like you've put too much in. So simple as a little bit of kitchen tissue here, and you can kind of mop it up if you think you've done too much. But trust me, as long as you've got time for it to dry, that will dry really nicely and it will basically be a totally and utterly solid layer. So I will get that down to the fire and let it go off, and I'll pick up the next step very shortly. This is drying nicely inside. It's not fully dried, but it's dried enough that I can now go on to the next step. And the next step is going to be using my polyfiller, as you can see here, and painting it on over the top of the cardboard. This will give it a texture when I come to paint it, which will be next, and will make it not look like cardboard. And it will also help to fill in these gaps, which obviously we don't want to have. So I'm going to do that now, and just very quickly run the filler all over. I'm going to need to start thinking about the roof as well, which I think it's going to be a nice simple process as well. But yeah, first of all, let's just get some texture on the inside and on the outside of this, very simply with wood filler, polyfiller. It's a very simple technique. I will not film it all because it's just this over and over again, but now you can see how I'm doing this. So filling the gaps and applying texture everywhere else. That's on and drying now, and probably will be dry very, very quickly. It's now time to do something which I kind of consider a little bit old school in a way. So I've not actually done this for a little while. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do my sand and gravel mix. So I have sand and paint to do my terrain basing. So actually that's rubbish. Let me start that again. Cut. So that's all done and is drying, and I can now do the next step. This is something which I used to do a lot and I haven't done for a little while, but it's still probably my preferred basing technique. I have my terrain paint, and I'm going to use my brown terrain paint, and I have my #1 sifted sand, and I'm going to paint on my terrain paint, and then quite thick, and then throw sand on it. So that will be the last thing that I do today, because now it really does all need to go off and dry. So if I can get some hobbying on Christmas Day, because it is now Christmas Eve, and I have just had these few minutes to do a few bits on this, then I will get a little bit more done tomorrow. But maybe it'll be Boxing Day before I get back to this. It's tight. I don't know whether I'm going to finish this in time, but I might, and it's worth trying. You should never give up. Never give up indeed. So yeah, so I'm just going to slap a load of paint on like this, and then we will scatter sand on, and when that's dry I will paint over again with the same colour, and then we will have a really nice dirt effect. So that, and then sand. Classic. A classic technique indeed. And it's so quick and easy. This will only take me a few minutes to do, and it goes off almost immediately. So I can straight away bring the bucket over and empty that back into the bucket, and it's left a nice texture that you can see there. So I'll get that done on the whole of the base, let it to dry, and I'll bring you back for the next step when I get to it. I have decided to do some painting of the walls this evening as well, just to get ahead, because I'm in such a rush and I've got a few minutes now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the first colour on, is this colour that's called Africa, which I really like. It's a bit purpley, a bit dusty, and I think it will work really, really nicely for what I'm trying to achieve here. So I'm just going to paint that all over the walls and cover up as much of the white, not worry too much about being too tidy, and then later on I can come in and dry brush when that's dry. So I'll get that done, and then it really will be time for me to stop working on this. So yes, this is a paint called Africa. Right, it's time to do the roof. So I've got some cardboard, which I've cut 20 centimetres by 15, and I've got some sandpaper. And I'm going to cut strips and I'm going to glue it down onto the top of this roof, and that then will sit on, it will look fine, it'll be very quick. I've run out a bit of motivation, maybe feeling so much rushed and not doing exactly the build that I wanted to for this, but I still think this is going to look nice and it'll get use. So I'll cut that out, stick it down, probably use PVA, we'll need a lot of weight. I'm not going to film it because it's just going to be cutting and sticking, but that's how I'm going to do the roof. You can see in the background that I've also done the extra paint colour on the ground, that's now drying as well. So yeah, we're not far off, bit of flocking and we'll be done, but I do still need to do the stalls inside, so I'll do them as well next. The roof is dried and it is looking great. It's exactly what I wanted, just that kind of tar paper look, and it sets on very nicely. So now we're on to the final couple of steps. I still need to make the stalls inside. I'm going to do that tomorrow. It's late now and I'm tired. I'm just editing the vlog and I just looked at this and realised, you know what, I can get a little bit more done tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my flocking. So I have my terrain glue, and if you want the recipe for this, it's in the description below as always. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint that on, and I am actually going to use shop bought flock, mainly because my homemade stuff is just not to hand right now and I am in a pretty major hurry, obviously. So I'm going to quickly come along and just do a two colour. So first of all we have this Moscorin, which is the darker, and I always apply the darker first. So once I've applied the darker, I will then do a scattering of the lighter, and then I will leave that to dry overnight. Now you can see by how I've put the glue that I don't want to have a complete covering. I want to show the mud off still, so I'm not going to worry too much about getting a complete covering of scatter even where there is glue, but it will look really nice. It's a very simple technique and it works well. So we'll do the one colour, that's the dark, then we'll grab the light, which is the Lichtgrün, light green. And then I always come along with a little bit more of the dark just to kind of blend the two together. So I'll do that over the whole of the piece, which won't take long because you've just watched me do the majority of it. And then when that's dry, that will be most of the scenicking done. I am considering putting some tufts and some flowers on, and if I do that, then I'll be sure to show you. But yeah, cracking on. Something that's happened this week, not on camera, is I've finished off the final 6 ships for Oak and Iron, and I've also been cracking on with another display board, exactly the same as the other one that I made, which is now very close to finish. As you can see, it just needs to have the white paint done to it to pick out the tops of the waves, and then it's done. So I'm really pleased. That's all of the ships done. The 6 from the core box. These are the 1st through 6th rate ships as well, and then obviously I've also done the 2 special ships, the Revenge and the Queen Anne's Revenge. I haven't yet got a display board for those 2, which I'll do after this one, but yeah, that's something which I did do this week. I'm really pleased. It's not taken me very long, and I think they're looking really, really nice, and I really like my display board again. It's very, very cool. So yeah, a bit more progress on something which I didn't do on film all week. So that's good. It's early in the morning and I woke up, can't sleep, so I thought I'd just do a little bit of detailing on this just while I've got a little bit of awake time. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is making some stuff to hang up or to decorate the outside of the building. So it's very plain at the moment, and that's not really how I want it to be. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have some little flowering shrubs that I purchased. They will mostly be going on the model railway, but I'm going to steal one and I'm going to put it just in this corner here. So just using the bradawl, we're going to poke a little hole, then we will drop a little bit of PVA and then push that. It's got a kind of like a wire, a wire end. So we'll just push that into that hole we just made, and I think that will look really, really nice. Oh, that bent. Okay, let's find that hole again. Can't find where I poked the hole. Did it too far back. Let's put it forwards a little bit. There we are. Now we can see the hole, and we can shove that in. There we are. So there's a little bit of decoration immediately. So the next thing that I'm going to be doing is something I've been thinking about for a little while, and that is I'm going to be hanging a sort of rope, or probably at least maybe just one, maybe on the other side, I'm not sure exactly where. But first of all, we're going to make the little twist of rope that we're going to hang up. So let me just change the focus very slightly so you can see that a bit better. So I'm winding that around my finger because I think that's going to be about the right kind of like dimensions. And then what we'll do is, actually before we cut it, I'm just going to get a little bit of super glue and use a little bit of super glue to hold that together, just like that. I don't want to glue too much because I want it to be a little bit free hanging. Put a bit of super glue there, and then we'll hold that together. And then when that's gone off, then we'll be able to put that onto the wall. And I have an idea about how that's going to work as well. So I will leave that to go off now and come back to that in a minute. so that can dry. So the final thing that I'm going to do for decorating the outside of this is I'm going to make a hay fork. And I'm going to do that using a toothpick, which you can see here. There's a toothpick, which won't focus on, but yep, you've all seen toothpicks. And a little bit of wire. And I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work because I'm making this up on the spot again. So let me again move the focus so you can see. So the little bit of wire, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend this round so you end up with a hay fork. Look, like that. And then I'll need to grab myself my wire cutters, so just give me a second. There we are, so we've got the wire cutters. This is not filming very well because of focus, but I'll snip that off. There we are. And that now will be able to be mounted to the bottom of a toothpick, and it will be a really good hay fork. Now it's a bit long at the moment, so we can very simply cut that down to height. I reckon it should be about 3 centimeters. They are about as tall as a man, and this is 28mm. So there we are. And again, what I'll do is I'll use super glue to attach that to the bottom of that. So I'll get my super glue and then I'll pause for the time being, and then when everything's dried I'll bring you back and we will actually mount it. So let me just shift the focus of the camera a bit so you can see it a bit better. There we are, there's the little fork and a dab of super glue like so. Oh, sorry, hand in the way. Got that focus again, yep. And then I could just use the rest of the toothpick to kind of like move it into place. And I could even use some activator on this if I wanted to, but I'm not going to, I'm just going to be patient. So I'll leave that to go off, and then I'll come back when that's gone off, and also when the rope's gone off, and show you where I'm going to put them. While we're waiting for those decorative pieces to go off, I'm going to make the stools. So I wanted 3 stools. So what I've got here is I've got a 15cm long piece of card that I've divided into 3. So each stool will be 5 centimeters deep and is 4 centimeters high. So I've just marked out where I want to cut, a little bit of measuring, a little bit of cutting, and now we're going to get the knife and slice down. So we'll do this very carefully, as always. So I'll do one on camera and then I'll do the rest not. So I wanted to have a bit of an upright, a bit of a leg coming out, but have a gap between each stool. So if I just finish doing these cuts, and I'll show what it looks like, and then we'll get it glued in place. So there we are. So that's going to go against the wall, and that's going to go towards the front, and that'll be the gap between. And then when that's in, I'll be able to put some detritus in that look like hay, which I'll show you obviously. So I'll get these cut and painted up. I'm just going to use the dark brown paint that I use, and then I'll get them glued in place, and then they'll be done, and I'll be happy with that. My hay fork is dry. There he is. So what I'm now going to do is glue that in place just next to the door. So I will pop a couple of bits of super glue on the ground there and lead it up. There we are. And then just for a little bit more security, we'll put a little bit of super glue just on the top there. Done. Right, so that now will go off, and that will dress that side very nicely. The other bit I've got is my roll of rope. So I will get myself a dressmaker's pin and be back and show you how I'm looking at attaching that to the wall. So the idea here is that I will have a little pin, and this is a dressmaker's pin, and I've just clipped the end off so that it does not have a spiky bit on the end anymore. And I'll stick that dressmaker's pin in through the wall and glue it in place, and then hang the rope on the pin. So we'll put super glue around the base and all the way along the top, and then come along with our rope, making sure that the down bit hangs where gravity would take it, And there we are. We have a rope on the wall. That's cool. So we're not far off now. Just need to have the stalls in place, and then the basics are done, and I'll be happy to submit that. It's not a very good piece, but considering the fact that the effort and the thought I put into my main piece just all went away, I kind of got a bit of burnout on this project, and I'm just pleased to have done something which is going to be useful for gaming, which this will be. So anyway, we're nearly there, and I'm pleased to have actually finished something at least, and it does look okay. It'll be perfectly fine on the gaming table. It's just not up to my usual diorama standards for this competition, but hey, you win some, you lose some, and it's the taking part and the fact that something's been completed that matters. And now we come to the absolute final step for my basics. If I do some more prettying of this, then that's a totally different thing. I'm not going to do it now. And this is putting in the stalls, and so I'm just using super glue, and I've actually decided to only do 3 stalls, not 4, just to make them a little bit better size for gaming with. So a bead of super glue along the back and along the bottom of the foot, and that is drying in nicely. So there we are. We have the inside of a stable, we have it dressed outside, and I think that's okay. So I'm going to sit back and look at it. I've actually got another day where I could do some more dressing, but for now I'm going to call that done and see how I feel maybe later on today or tomorrow when I look at it and cut it off its base and get it ready to photograph. So I might do a little bit more, but I very much doubt it. So there you are. That was the week that was, and it was a week where I experienced a bit of burnout, as you can tell on the encounter challenge, mainly because I took the wind out of my sails because I was so excited about the initial idea, and then I couldn't do it, and so I had to kind of scrape around for another. It's a good idea. It could have been done very well, certainly a lot better than I've done it, but hey, it's going to be playable, as I've said, and it'll be useful, and at least I didn't give up, and that is the most important thing. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Please comment below if you have. I'd love to hear from you. I always reply to all my comments. So yeah, please do jump below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. It's amazing how many of you already have, and keep following this channel. We'll be going into the new year. The next vlog will be 2021, and let's hope that 2021 is a hell of a lot better than 2020 was. I hope that everyone out there is doing very well, has had a wonderful festive season, and as always, please do stay healthy, stay safe, and stay well.